are super fortunate to be joined by three brilliant entrepreneurs today. Dawoon Kang is, of course, our featured guest today, and she's being interviewed by two fellow tech entrepreneurs, Cindy Wu and Zachary Kim. All three are very successful and passionate about helping entrepreneurs thrive in Hawaii. So Dawoon, we're really all eager to learn more about you. And I'd like to turn it over to Cindy and Zach now. They're going to introduce themselves and take over the show. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing this morning?
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, all right.
Everyone awake? It's really early. Okay. I want to welcome everyone back to this month's issue of Talk Story. Today, we're very lucky to have Dawoon here with us. Your co-hosts today are me and Zach. And before we jump into the main event, I was hoping, Zach, could you tell our viewers a few lines about who you are?
I would love to. I'm going to keep it short. My name is Zachary Kim. I'm co-founder and CTO of a company called Flow Capital. We do supply chain financing for D2C and CPG companies. I've been a lifelong technologist. I got my first programming job here, like a mile away from here at the Manila Innovation Center. And I love technology and I love programming and talking to future entrepreneurs and helping them with their technology stuff and hiring programmers and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, happy to be here. I'm a big fan of Coffee Meets Bagel. Well, I'll let Dawoon kind of give us the perspective on it, but it's just a very difficult space. I don't want to spoil anything, but I also did a two-sided marketplace, and so I know kind of the challenges and just how difficult it is. So I'm very excited to talk to you about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I'm Cindy. I'm the co-founder of a company called Jelly, and previously started a company called Experiment with my best friend Denny. When we first started thinking about this series, you were our #1 top choice for speakers to invite to this series. So we're really grateful. Super flattered here.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get started. So we actually met in 2015 at a co-founder communication workshop led by Joe Greenstein.
Right. Yeah.
And you were there with your twin sister, and I was there with Denny. What brought you to that workshop?
Yeah, sure. So before I get into that question, should I tell them a little bit about Coffee Meets Bagel?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm, hi everyone, nice to meet you guys in the room. This is actually my first in-person speaking event since COVID, so I'm really, really excited. My mom is here with me also. She doesn't speak English, so I think this is kind of boring for her, but I'm really happy to be here with my mom. And hi everyone to people online. I see that some people, I saw that there was one person from Taiwan, which is really exciting because Coffee Meets Bagel actually is becoming very popular in Asia as well. And Taiwan is one of our fastest growing markets. So it's really exciting to see that. So a little bit about Coffee Meets Bagel. Coffee Meets Bagel is a dating app. I guess one of the most famous ones you can think of is probably Tinder that everyone knows. And we always say that Coffee Meets Bagel is not a dating app for every dater, because we really specialize and we want to be the best at serving people who are seeking long-term relationship. That is our #1 focus. And we want to be best at that. And so if you're somebody who's not looking for a long-term relationship, Coffee Meets Bagel probably is not the best dating app for you. And we really emphasize that, our mission is to give everyone a chance at love. And that equates to thriving, successful, long-term relationship. So that's what Coffee Meets Bagel in a nutshell. And so going back to your question about, we met at the founders workshop, and I was there with my sister because this was early days. And, I consider relationship with your co-founder one of the most important factor in being able to make your company successful. I've seen many times, there are a lot of companies that started with us, back in the days, and a lot of them don't exist anymore. And one main reason is that they don't get along with the co-founders. And so they end up imploding because co-founders are not able to figure out a way to work effectively together. And I am lucky because I co-founded my company with my twin sisters and my older sister. So we had a built-in trust that we didn't have to work towards because we just trusted each other completely. However, it also came with the baggage because we, for 30 years, we were sisters. We have a way of listening and talking that is very unique to sisterhood, that is sometimes, a lot of times, appropriate at workplace. And so we were there just to work out, how do we actually be a better co-founder and leader of a company.
Did you leave with any tools that helped you and your sister communicate better?
I think so. So I was there particularly with my older sister, who I had a harder time working with. My older sister's a designer. And so, because I'm a business person, working first time with actually a creative leader. And so, I think one of the main takeaway that I got was that she just thinks very differently than I do, and doesn't mean that she's wrong. It's just like a very different way of thinking. And it was nice to be able to have a platform to talk that out, because sometimes, when you're like day to day, you're just trying to move difference in the business. You don't have time to talk about issues and it starts piling up. So it was nice to have that platform.
Nice. So you have two sisters and a younger brother, and both of your parents were entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your dad building his business with his brother?
Yeah. So my dad, my inspiration of entrepreneurship really came from my dad and my mom as well. Actually, she was an entrepreneur, in a smaller scale. So my dad started his company, which is a recycling metal company in Korea. I'm from Korea. And he started this just like right out of college with his brother, so my uncle. And so he's never actually worked for anyone else in his life. Unlike me, I had like a 10 years of corporate experience before starting Coffee Meets Bagel. And when I was little, like my dad and my uncle would take us to their factory and show us different machines. And he would explain like, hey, like he was a mechanical engineer, so he actually designed the plant machines himself. And one of the key success factor in this business is operational efficiency. So you have to be able to get as much outputable metal that you can recycle from metal that's already been used. And so plant efficiency is really important. And he actually designed the machines himself. And so he actually patented some of them. And I think more than anything, of course, I didn't understand the technical part of it, but I could just feel his passion towards making things better and growing his business. And also, taking care of his people. I remember like during IMF crisis, which actually impacted Hawaii economy a lot. I was actually a high school here at Sacred Arts at the time, almost had to go back to Korea because my dad's business was under a hard time. And
Can you explain for our viewers what IMF?
Oh yeah, and probably I'm dating myself, but talking about this in 1997 or 8, there was a huge financial crisis in Asia. I won't get into the details because I actually probably can't remember the technical details of it. But Hawaii also was impacted, obviously, because our economy is so tied to Asia economy. So the dollar, like the currency ratio between dollar and Korean won became huge. Like Korean won just depreciated so much that the tuition that he was sending to support me going to Sacred Hearts here, it's just like he couldn't make that work, but somehow he made it work eventually. So a lot of my friends who were here with me from Korea actually had to go back to Korea and whatever country that they were from. So that's a little bit about Asia financial crisis. And then at the time he had to lay off a lot of people. And I remember him actually practicing his speech, like when you have a layoff, there you need to have a story in place and make sure you have a plan in place. And he was practicing that in front of us. And again, like I think from that, what I got is, wow, this is it's a difficult, but also such a fulfilling path. And so, I knew that at some point I wanted to be an entrepreneur myself.
Thanks for sharing. Zach, I know that your dad also started a company with his 3 brothers.
Yes, he's got 3 brothers, but it was with his 2 brothers.
His 2 brothers?
Yeah, and actually we were talking about that. It's very, very common in just Asian, I'm half Korean, he's full Korean. It's just very common in Asian families.
So when you went to start your business, did it come naturally to you?
No, I mean, you probably did the same thing. You make every mistake in the book. I think the important point is that seeing that passion, it's two things. It's like seeing your family's passion for something, right? And then there's probably I don't know, either genetic or environmental component of it's just like, and actually, you said it, which is you didn't know it was weird, right?
Yeah.
It was just the thing to do.
Yeah, so I this is one of the reasons why I'm actually really passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we are just product of our own environment. And because I grew up watching my dad being an entrepreneur, like I thought it was a thing to do. However, when it comes to computer science, for example, I actually never had anyone around me who majored in computer science. So because it felt so unfamiliar, when I first encountered it, it was kind of scary. But I think if I was exposed to it, if my dad was a computer scientist or my mom was a computer scientist, I think I would have had no reservation. It's just a thing to do. And so exposure is really important. And I think, so if you,
Absolutely.
that's why DEI is such an important initiative, because that's ultimately how we actually create society where, everything is kind of represented. We don't have to, based on our, I guess, biological factors, we're not limited by that.
Build a more equitable world.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I'd say out of the, I mean, this is completely anecdotal, but yeah, the people that I know that are entrepreneurs and it feels natural, it was just the thing that you did, right? Like, which is weird because, I feel like there's the other side of the coin, which is like the thing that you do is just you go get a job at a big safe corporation or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like you don't even know it's an option unless it's part of your upbringing or you get exposure to it. So
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
so
you have
great.
to know that what's possible in order
Yeah.
to actually go for that.
So your mom's here with us today. Your mom, also an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about her entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm laughing because she's falling asleep a little bit. So my mom actually started a small business. So she ran a restaurant, and different things. Like she was when my dad was an entrepreneur, like starting his business. Of course, somebody needed to take care of the house and raise us and support us. So she couldn't actually work, but she was always finding stuff to do. So she was, at one point doing like, if you guys are familiar with Avon products or any kind of like multilateral, like I don't know what you call it, like selling scheme.
Like the knives thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So she was doing that to kind of make money to supplement the household income. And then like when we actually grew up, she didn't really need to support us anymore. She actually was running restaurants. And I remember she also, growing up in Korea, like in that generation, entrepreneurship is not something that was like familiar to her, but it took a lot of courage for her to do that, which really inspired me. And I also remember her taking classes like Dale Carnegie, like a persuasion class, like communication class. And then she also was practicing things in front of us, which was so cute and so endearing. And so whenever I actually get like hit roadblock or think like, oh, it's a situation, I don't know if I can deal with it, I actually think about my mom.
It's really sweet.
Yeah.
So when you and your sisters moved from Korea to America, it was you and your twin sister and your older sister?
Yes.
What was it like landing at the airport?
I don't
How old were
know.
you?
I was, so when I first left Korea, I was 12 and I went to Canada first for a year. I was in Victoria, which is a small city of like close to Vancouver Island. I mean, it's on Vancouver Island. And then I moved here. So when I was 13, I moved here and I went to Sacred Hearts. And so I don't know, like, I think I was just kind of thinking at that age, we're kind of agile. And so I think I was just like, oh, this is interesting and fun. Like it's cool. Like I'm in you watch a lot of movies in Korea that's in the US and I'm like, oh, I'm in a movie. So yeah, it was like exciting.
Yeah, was Canada like everything you dreamed it would be?
I think I just was like, that it was cool that I'm in an environment where people are speaking English. And then, it was also stressful because I wanted to do well. Like I was always one of those students who wanted to do really well in class. And I was doing well in Korea. And then now because of the language barrier, I wasn't able to. So that was stressful for me. But I think besides that, it was like fun and exciting.
What was your time like in Hawaii during this or middle school?
I was
13,
high
14?
school. So I came here when I was 13. I went straight to Sacred Hearts.
Mhm.
So that's when I started freshman year. I think I'm so happy that my dad chose to send me to Hawaii because it's such a warm culture. And I think for somebody who was coming from such a different place, Hawaii is like the perfect place because it's like very welcoming and embracing. And also, the culture here is very much tied to Asia, right? So it didn't feel as quite unfamiliar. I actually probably had more culture shock when I went to college. I went to college in Philadelphia. That was very different. But I didn't, really have a huge culture shock here.
Let's talk about college. So you and your twin sister went to the same college, right? Cool.
Yeah.
How did you decide to do that? Was that planned?
Yeah. We actually wrote in our college application, hey, if you don't accept my other sister, I'm not gonna go. So we got into the same college and we got rejected by the same college. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you could have gone to a different college together.
Yeah.
And then when you were in college, you majored in psychology
Yeah.
and East Asian studies.
Yes.
What led you to major in that?
Oh, well, honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to study. And so I always was jealous of people who kind of seem to know, like Zach, you said you studied computer science or programming at 16, like, so and then you did that for 20 years. Like, I was never one of those. I was like interested in a lot of different things. Didn't really like dig into one in particular. And so when I went to college, I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to study. And I landed in psychology because I happened to take a psychology 101 class because it was like some kind of fulfilling requirement thing. And then I loved my psych professor. And the way he taught, it was so interesting. And I was like, oh, wow, so I think I was just following whatever sounded interesting to me. And then, so I ended up majoring in psychology. One of the things I really appreciate about psychology or social science in general is the way you actually like look at the world as a whole, like an experiment. Like you can actually design and concepts, like complicated concepts like love or persuasion or those kind of things, you don't think you can quantify it in scientific terms, but you can through social science. And you learn how to design things, you learn how to test your hypothesis, you learn about statistics, which actually, like in an entrepreneur world, like all you're doing is creating you're in a field, you're at the forefront of things that have never been done before. You always have to be constantly experimenting in order to figure out the right way because the path is not set. And so I think that skill set really translated for me. I forgot what you originally asked, but yeah.
It's interesting because there's that old kind of entrepreneurial adage that all problems are people problems. And then especially at a company like Coffee Meets Bagel, where either the psychology of the relationships or whatever that is a first class concern, which it's not at most other companies. Is there a lot of overlap? Do you find yourself using kind of the same like problem solving tools for both your employees or internally and externally with
Yeah,
customers?
totally. Like so one example that comes to me like is when we actually set product roadmap, right? And so there are a lot of different ways there are a lot of different things that we could be actually doing. And our ultimate KPI that we measure our success on is, we call it active data metric, which is number of people who actually end up exchanging their phone numbers or whatever contact information on our chat, because that we use as a signal for a connection that was meaningful enough for people to want to take the next step. And so our goal is to actually have as many daters on CNB do that.
You want them to move off CNB?
Yeah, move off CNB. We actually even have if you look at our chat, the way the app is designed, our chat expires in 7 days if you actually are not chatting. And the reason we do that is because we want to actually create a trigger for you to take action. A lot of times in dating, this is been going back to your question about like, you need to really understand and be able to put yourself in the situation in the shoes of a dater. And what's great about dating is that everybody is a dater. Like, who has not dated, right? So it's relatively easy to actually be able to put yourself in the dater situation. And when you think about yourself dating, it's kind of scary to put yourself out there, right? You like somebody and then you connect it, but you never want to be the first person to be the one says hi or like asking like, oh, hey, can I have your number? Because that's like too much. Like, what if I come across desperate? Oh my God, I'm gonna come across needy. Like all this stuff goes in your head. And so even if you kind of want to, you don't want to do it. And so for our job is to know that, right? And how do we actually make it easy for them to actually take action without having to worry about looking desperate or whatever. And so one thing that we do is we actually say, like, if nobody's chatting, we say, hey, like this chat is going to expire. So if you actually want to make something, you need to exchange phone number because we're going to expire this chat. Then it's easier for somebody to step up and be like, oh, hey, the CNB is saying that this chat is expiring. Do you want to actually like, get to know each other by exchanging something, right? And so that's one example of how you have to think about the psychology of the dater to be able to design an experience that's going to result in the most number of people having a chance at long-term relationship.
And you're actually in a position that not many people have been in, which is you're like a third party to that relationship.
Yeah,
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So we have more power to be able to intervene, right? Versus if I'm the person who's actually like dating, it's a little bit scary.
Yeah. Is there like, that seems like it's a big responsibility, right? Because on the other side of the coin, it's like, I'm sure you have a lot of conversations around safety and you have the ability to kind of be in a situation to identify and flag behavior that might not be positive. Like that, but it's also a big responsibility, right? Like how do you guys think about that internally? Like I wouldn't even know how to design a system around that.
Oh, yeah. So, it is very important and not like theoretically, we know it because we do research around like, okay, hey guys, like we work with third party to research daters. Data is defined by anyone who's used at least one dating app in the last 12 months. So not just Coffee Table users. And then we ask, hey, what are the things that are important to you when it comes to making a choice on what dating apps to use? And safety, feel safe to use always comes number one cross-culturally, like the US and definitely in Asia. And so that's a big factor. So we know that that's something that we have to prioritize. When it comes to dating, if it doesn't feel safe, there's the lack of trust. And so if if the daters can't trust your platform, then like nothing really works, right? And so and it's kind of a cat and mouse game, to be honest. Like we do something and then all these like bad actors like learn that we did something and then they like kind of catch up. And so we have to, what we do is we prioritize, okay, we need to always be prioritizing a certain amount of resource to safety. And so that's just a given, and that's kind of how we handle it. We're honest, if I'm honest, I don't think we're ever going to get to the situation where we're like 100%.
Right, it's not a solvable problem, right? It's
Yeah.
always, it sounds like solving the problem is having people and resources and constantly innovating around keeping people safe.
Yeah. So we do various things. Like we partner with a third party who specializes in scammer detection. Like there's an AI like a third party that we use to detect as much quickly as possible scammers. And the safety metric that we use as a success is the percentage of people who are reported by our own daters to be like, this is not an appropriate person. We consider that a failure because we failed to catch them before they saw it. And so we measure that. And so, catching them is one thing. Data education is also another thing, huge. So, there actually has been, I don't know if you guys know this, but there actually has been a huge influx of crypto scammers. And so basically they're super professionals. They basically get you to sign up for some crypto account and then transfer money and then disappear, and there's no way to track them because it's crypto. So, just making sure that our data is know, hey, this exists. Like we don't want to hide that it's possible that you might come across such person on CNB, because if you do, we want you to actually know that it's somebody that you shouldn't be engaging in. So the data education is a big thing as well.
Very interesting.
The Coffee Meets Bagel is 10 years old this year.
Mhm,
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Looking back 10 years, what inspired you and your sisters to enter this industry?
I think at first was just, so we knew that we wanted to do something in the consumer space because, well, I guess we knew that we wanted to do something entrepreneurial, like have our own startup, kind of inspired by our dad. And, we just felt like that was the coolest way we can actually leave legacy in this world. So entrepreneurship first. We knew that we wanted to do something in consumer space because we wanted to directly impact and wanted to be able to see the impact that we were making with our work to as many individuals as possible. And then dating came about because it's such an interesting problem. And I think by the function that we were in our late 20s, early 30s, when we actually started looking into like, what do we want to do? Dating constantly came up as a frequent problem that we talked about, and our friends, men and women. And so that's why we started looking into it, because it was interesting. And then when we looked at the dynamic of the business and the potential business opportunity ideal that we had, we felt like there was white space enough for us to be able to enter. Now it's a very, very competitive space. And I don't think I even knew the extent of how competitive it is, which makes it challenging. It's really fun, but it's also very challenging.
The Coffee Meets Bagel is a marketplace. Zach has experience building marketplace with Zarly. Zarly is actually how we found our first designers for Experiment. And then me and Denny also are building a marketplace with Experiment. I think startups are hard, and then marketplaces are often 5 to 10 times more difficult because you have the chicken and egg problem.
Yeah.
Both sides to show up at the same time.
Yeah.
How were you able to make that happen?
Yeah. Lesson of the day, don't do marketplaces.
Yes, don't do marketplaces.
Stay away.
Just kidding.
That's the truth right there. Yeah, just don't do it.
Oh, that's crazy that all 3 of us are in marketplace. Anyway, so couple things. So I think for marketplace, you do need funding. So because you do have to get it to a certain scale in order to be able to service people properly. So you do need funding. And then the second thing is, I think there are certain things that you can do to get around this. We need a sizable, scale to be able to work properly. So for Coffee Meets Bagel, when we first started, our model was like all about curation, right? So, the way our goal is to, long-term relationship. How do we actually do that? By focusing on quality instead of focusing on quantity. Like, okay, these are the 1,000 people that you can actually choose from. We're just going to introduce you to limited number of people. And when we first started, it was 1. We eventually realized we can't do 1 because we just are not good enough to be able to just serve 1 and have people always leave delighted.
You only give people 1 person.
We used
a day or
1 person a day.
Okay.
Yeah, we used to do that because we were like, okay, hyper focus on quality. Now, because you only see 1 person a day, not like swipe, 1,000 people, we were able to start relatively small, even though we were a marketplace, because you're only seeing 1. And so I think when we first started, it was like 200 people signed up. Basically, we collected all the email addresses that we could collect from our friends and family, and then we blasted it at one time so that everybody joins at one time. That was about 200 people, and that was enough to actually get us started somewhat properly. Of course, if you have less people, you can't curate as much because if you look, okay, my algorithm is really good at curating, but I only have 1 person, but I'm gonna have to show you that 1 person, right? So the larger
that 1 person you?
Did you ever find someone you really want to date and you're like, this person wants to
no comment. so of course we couldn't curate as much because the pool wasn't as big, but it was like, it was working somewhat. And then because people liked it, they started talking about it, and then like more and more people signed up, trickling in. So that's kind of how so you can think of ways in your own way how you can get around the marketplace problem.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, they're all different, but everyone has like I'm not gonna call it a hack, but yeah, the thing that you do, 6 months, or the thing that makes you successful in the long term is not the thing that you start with, right? For us, so Zarly was a kind of a Craigslist type of thing where you would you could, it's a marketplace for service providers. So if you need someone to get for your house, or like a handyman, or somebody to mow your lawn, like you come on use the platform.
Mhm.
All the things that Dawoon just said, like, were 100% applicable to us. The only thing I'll add is we had to figure out who could wait longer without communication, right? Because the issue is somebody comes on the platform, for us, it was people who needed stuff to get done around the house, and then service providers, right? If I want something done on my house, I'm not going to go on a site and put in my information, and then we'll be like, oh, we'll get back to you in a couple of months, and then that's fine, right? Like, nobody's going to go for that. Somebody who's on the customer side, they want something instantly, or at least very soon in a reasonable time frame. Service providers, on the other hand, like, if their information is on the platform, they can wait around for months because it's just another customer acquisition channel.
Yeah.
So I think the thing, in addition to all the stuff that you just said, the thing that really helped us was, and might help you if you're doing a two-sided marketplace, is who can go longer without the event that brought them to the platform.
Yeah, that's really smart.
Yeah. So I think also there's that's 6 out of like the 1,000 things that you could do for your two-sided marketplace. But I think the most important one to keep in mind is what you said, which is just don't do it.
Yeah, just don't start. So you had mentioned that marketplaces need capital. You bootstrapped for a while until a couple thousand users.
Yeah.
And then how did you decide that you wanted to go out and raise more money?
Yeah, so we bootstrapped. So I was in banking before. I was investing in finance, so then I had a little bit of money saved, and we actually also had our dad as an angel investor. And so I think it was like about $40,000 or something like that. And so we said, hey, we're gonna cap whatever loss, if this doesn't end up going anywhere, it's capped at 40,000. And then with that money, among the 3 of us, there were 2 business majors and 1 designer. We didn't have a tech co-founder, so that was where most of the money went to development. So we found a freelance developer from Indonesia using Upwork, and then started developing our MVP, because the idea of quality, we had the product idea. So then my sister designed it, and they started programming. And then after we had after we actually had conviction that from the MVP, we like, hey, this is actually going to go somewhere, so we should actually build it more thoroughly. We built it, and then we were already operating, had a couple thousand people. And really the point at which we decided, okay, we need to fundraise, was just a intuition, art. This is kind of an art and science thing, intuition that, hey, I think we have enough traction that we can actually raise. And you can talk to your VC friends, like investor friends, hey, do you think this is enough? And then also, of course, a function of money. I think we were like running low on cash, and then we didn't want to be in a situation where we completely ran out of money.
You were talking a little bit about hiring technical funder. You eventually found your CTO, Adam.
Yeah.
What made it work so well with Adam?
Yeah. So I think with Adam, for any hires, really, actually, the value alignment is really important. And so one was, he was super passionate about dating, and making our mission as much as we were. So when there's an interest, people just find ways, right, to generate solutions, generate things that we need to do to make things work. So that was really important. And then he was the type of person who would also like always put company's interest ahead of his own, which is a value that I think it's a service-oriented leadership, right? And that's something that I value a lot. And so because I saw that in him, we also, I think those are the 2 things that really actually made it work for us. And technically, obviously, he was really good.
Back when you're looking for a first engineering hire, anything specific that you look for?
Yeah, value alignment. I mean, it's funny, but it's all people stuff. It's like value alignment, strong opinions, loosely held, and like technical ability is fourth or fifth on the list, honestly. It's kind of interesting. I think where that's not true is if you're shooting rockets in the space or whatever you call it, somebody who's like very, very technically talented. But so I think for and then kind of the more mundane stuff, like are you able to ship things, right? Are you able to get things out the door? Because that's a big kind of issue if you can't. But really it's like, are you an a-hole or not? And then can you get things across the goal line? And then are you aligned with the mission of the company? And do I want to spend 8 hours a day talking to you? Like that's probably the biggest thing.
It's really important.
Yeah.
So Zach, working with Rob, I'm sure you have your own unique set of challenges. Me working with Denny, we have our own unique set of challenges. On top of that, we have that we're also dating. So you and your sisters have like this entire history of knowing each other for 30 some years. What unique set of challenges did you face?
Yeah. First of all, I'm like in such an admiration for you, Cindy, for being able to run your company with your person you're dating. I think
Don't start a marketplace. Don't start something with the person you're dating. If you want to succeed.
No, we're joking, really. So with me and my sister, so I think the most challenge problem that we needed to work on was our communication style. So I don't think this is true for actually all siblings, but just our sibling dynamic is such that when we talk, it's a little bit like rough, like I would say it's kind of I don't know, energetically it's a little bit mean. And we don't mean like it to be a mean way, but I think it's just always the way we have spoken to each other. But I think when our team members were, in the middle of the discussion, they felt really uncomfortable. Like we started hearing like, I'm kind of like, we're arguing and bickering basically. And it's a very uncomfortable place to be in. And it's not inspiring. Also, like, I think when startup, like, because you're struggling and having so much challenges, the energy that you actually feel at the company is very important. You want to be a leader who energetically lift everyone up, even when there's a struggle. And I don't think we were doing that by demonstrating so much bickering. And so that's something that, and also this is 30 years of talking that way. So of course it's not going to change overnight. So we're still working at it to this day. Yeah, we've gotten much better.
How do you work on that?
But at some point we had a coach. We had like same coach, we had like same therapist to just kind of work things out.
Your therapist is also your coach, the same person.
It was different, but my therapist actually really worked as a coach. I think because she was just really good. And then we would have like our one-on-one is actually an hour and a half every week, versus 30 minutes or even 50 minutes. And we have it long because we want to make sure anything that piled up during that week gets resolved in that meeting. And there's nothing that's going to continue to pile up and then somebody's going to explode.
So an hour and a half is enough. You have extra time at the end usually, or do you use the whole hour and a half?
We always end up using a whole hour and a half. Yeah.
Zach, do you have any unique challenges working with your co-founder, Rob?
Oh, Rob's awesome, man. I feel so lucky to our relation. I feel lucky to be in our relationship, and that's what it is. Like co-founder relationship is especially early on, is the most important thing. I think you said like that's the thing that kills companies, right? And like I want to highlight Dawoon. You said that the CEO, like one of the big jobs for the founding team and the leaders of the company is to elevate the energy 100%, right? Like at the end of the day, it's like that's what keeps the game going, versus like, versus focusing on more shorter term, like short term kind of one by one wins. It's like, are you building an environment, a high energy environment where people like love to do the work, right? And that, you're right, like totally. And nobody really talks about that either.
Yeah. I think it's something that I kind of got way years into actually
Mhm.
running a company already.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting.
When you once said that the founder's job consists of never running out of cash, recruiting smart people,
Yeah,
and 3, communicating the vision and setting the culture.
yeah.
Has the founder's job changed for you and now that you're 10 years in, or you think it's still the same?
I think it's still the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, so one of the things, like for example, culture and talent. So culture is setting the culture, high energy, lifting everyone up, believing and, making sure people can believe even if there's something bad happening, right? So that culture is important. And then recruiting the right people and actually placing them in the right positions. Like even if you have a smart person, if they're in the wrong position, they're not gonna be good. And I call it like unlocking human potential. How can we actually unlock all the potential of each of our team members? And I think they need to be in the right position in order to be able to do that. And then of course funding. So right now I'm in charge of culture and talent. And I don't think I'll ever actually change that. Like we've talked about, hey, we should just hire a people person who's going to actually professionalize this thing. But I really intuitively, I just know that this is so important that it's like, I don't think I'll actually give that to somebody for a very long time.
We have a lot of questions about Shark Tank.
Mm-hmm.
So you were on Shark Tank and Mark Cuban offered to buy Coffee Meets Bagel for $30 million,
Yeah.
which is one of the largest offers in the show's history. And you immediately turned him down. That's really bold. Where does that conviction come from?
Well, so at the time, it was really early in our business and we had just started and like, we didn't, like there was so much stuff that we wanted to do that we were just getting started on. So we never really got on the show. And I don't know if he like was hypothetical or meant to be serious or whatever, but we never got on the show thinking they were going to sell it, right? And so, because we were such an early part of our journey, yeah, it was like, it's crazy because we have so much stuff to do. Yeah.
Do you feel like you can spot that kind of conviction in new founders when you meet them?
Yeah, a lot of times, and that they inspire me when I actually come across founders who are like so into whatever they're wanting to create in the world. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and Zach today. I learned a lot from you today.
Oh, thank you.
And I think one of the things that stood out to me is that Coffee Meets Bagel is really more of a tool than a platform. And it's a tool to help, I think, people ask the right questions. And I think if everyone in the world could ask the right people the right questions in the right way at the right time, then the world would be a better place for everyone to live. So thank you for working on this problem.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me and thanks for showing up everyone here in the room and also in the virtual chat. Can I actually make one plug, which is I'm in charge of culture and talent, as I said, and we are always recruiting. And one of the things Zach and I talked about is like, hey, we really want to recruit more people from Hawaii. And actually, I'm the only one who's in Hawaii right now. I live in Kailua. And so I was like, oh my God, it would be really great to be able to recruit more people. Probably like any other tech startup, we're in dire need for more computer scientists and software developers. And so if you guys anyone's interested, software development or product design, that's an area that we're actually recruiting a lot right now. Please email me. It's my name, DAWON@coffeemeetsbagel.com.
Go work at Coffee Meets Bagel. We have time for a few questions. So if anyone from the live audience would like to ask a question, we'll start there and then move to the Zoom questions. Anyone have a question? Okay, we can pick. Zach, can you read that?
There were a
So
lot of
just-
questions.
Yeah, there are a lot. Should I just do one at random? Or
Sure.
should we go in order? Oh, this one's interesting. When does an entrepreneur decide that they have enough money/fame to start giving back to the community and other people who also want to be entrepreneurs and helping out the earth? environment. So if I can paraphrase a little bit, is there a point, and when is the point where you've kind of gotten things going to the point where you want to focus more on kind of the social part of the mission? And then specifically, I know for Coffee Meets Bagel, you guys started with that very, very early, which I think is unique to most companies. Maybe you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I think it really depends on, I mean, it depends on the person, right? And I think you have to be, as a person, be inspired to do that. And that probably is more of a barometer versus where your company stage is at. I think some people right off the bat, they want to be actually, committing a certain amount of time to whatever, either the cause. Like I have a friend who basically, I mean, she actually really inspires me. Her company actually does a platform for B2B platform for foster care. And then from very early on, her and her team actually started volunteering at foster care homes, because that's what they're interested in and passionate about. Like, I don't think her company was big or anything at all. And so you can always start at any time. But I think you can't force that, right? If you're like in the grind and like don't have the room to actually think about that, like I don't think you need to feel obligated to start it then. I think it's important to really have the room to be able to think about that kind of stuff. I don't know exactly when that started happening to me. Definitely not in the beginning.
Do you think it comes naturally, or is it something that you have to like kind of put not on the calendar, but like be like, okay, like 2 years in, we need to like really look at this? Or is there a point where you think it naturally happens?
I don't know if it naturally happened to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, part of it is things from based on my experience. It's not something you can force it. But like you can be inspired at some point. Like I don't know, we were talking, somebody was talking about something they did and you were like, wow, I want to be like that too. I don't know, which I think it kind of came naturally to me. And then what I did though is for fellow entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs, because I thought that was an area that was interesting, passionate for me. So I actually blocked out office hours for them, because otherwise you just get your calendar just gets booked up. And then I would actually, if somebody emails me and they're like, oh yeah, can I talk to you about whatever, I would just book it then. And if it's all booked up, I said like, I can't give more than X amount of hours per week. So that I'm gonna, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna talk to you like in a month, unless it's something urgent. And so I did that. I kind of stopped doing that because I had a baby and it just became too crazy. But I do want to get back to it at some point, in some shape or form.
Okay.
This one.
Yes.
How did you, or was there a moment that you knew that Coffee Meets Bagel was taking off?
I think that inkling actually came in very early when we did MVP. I didn't know it was going to be take off and to what extent, but I knew there was something there we needed to spend more time on, because, and it came when we finished the MVP. I think it was the 20 of our friends. And then when I started hearing their feedback about why they really everyone really enjoyed it and why they enjoyed it, I was like, wow, there's something here that definitely deserves attention, and that is not being fulfilled by the market, like existing product right now. I think that was like the earliest like conviction.
Is there anything specific that somebody said about the experience?
I can't remember. It's more of a feeling that I remember than what exactly was said. Yeah. Sorry, I wish I could remember.
I got an interesting one. And Lee, I'm sorry, I'm going to paraphrase here, but you have, like, your job is to build a successful company and a successful platform, right? You usually don't, your goal for building successful platforms is usually not to get people off of it, right? You're not trying to get them out the door. You're not trying to turn them on purpose, but that's essentially what you're saying, right? Whereas, maybe the Tinders of the world, they're more incentivized to keep people coming back. You're saying that you're trying to incentivize people to establish these long-term relationships, and kind of by default, that means they don't need your service anymore, right? How do you balance those kind of two forces of it's not traditional success, right?
Yeah. Well, we don't actually balance at all.
Yeah.
Because what we found from business, business goal perspective also, people who actually end up leaving the app because they met somebody, while they're on the app, even if it's a short period of time, they have such an amazing time. They're the ones who are promoting, they're the net promoters of our brand. They actually spend money on our brand. They bring so many new people to join Companies Bagel. So just from business sense, not even talking about oh, I want to do something good for them. It just makes total sense to create such an amazing experience that they can get off as soon as possible. Because if we do that, they're going to bring 20 new people. And if you actually compare, so of course we do competitive research and we look at a monetization, how much are people spending on Tinder versus our app? We don't know the exact Tinder number, but because from Match's public company, so we can kind of deduce our monetization is actually comparable to that level. I think because people who are on here are serious about meeting somebody, and with more seriousness, there's more willingness to open their wallet.
Did you get pushback from VCs when that was
Yeah.
we're trying to get people off the thing?
This is actually one of the most common questions that I got asked when we were pitching. But then when I understood and when they looked at the number, they understood.
So you had to make a business case for it, or you didn't have to, but
We had to explain.
you got to make the
from
medicine
data,
go down.
yeah.
Okay. The question from Michelle. How did you continuously identify the unspoken needs of your customers to improve coffee?
Okay. So it's very important that you always stay closely in touch with your customer through communication. So one way is if you can actually use your product, dog fooding, right? That's the best way to empathize with your customer. I actually use Coffee Table for a long time myself. And I actually met two of my ex-boyfriends on Coffee Table. So it was really easy for me to empathize when I was actually a dater myself and using Coffee Table and other dating apps. Now that I actually can't do that, my team continues to talk to customers through focus groups and stuff like that. But I actually also continue to use use CNB for my friends who are actually daters. And so that really gives me an understanding of, what is the experience like? And so I think you just need to find a way to, whatever that is, whether it's dog fooding or focus groups or whatever, to stay in close communication with customer at all times. Doesn't matter how mature your company is.
You have a daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's what, 2 or 1?
She's one.
1.
Yeah.
What age are you gonna let her get on Coffee?
Well, the minimum age is 18, so
Okay,
it
so
has to be 18 or older.
Okay, we have a question from Jonathan, who's my other co-host.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Hi, Jonathan. We miss you.
Yeah.
If you were to reverse one decision you made in the company history, what would it be?
I would have raised more money.
More money.
Yeah, I would have raised a lot more funding than I did.
Early on?
Or whenever.
Whenever.
Yeah.
each round?
Yeah, each round. So my seed was 600,000. I think we actually had a between series A and no. Seed was 600,000, and then I think our A was 8 million or something like that, and then our B was another 8 million. I can't remember exactly. And we did it because we were generating revenue. We raised that much money that we raised because we were generating revenue, and our plan was, okay, some of the growth is going to be funded by our profit, which we did. But I think I kind of, as an entrepreneur, the more one thing that I think everyone does is severely underestimate how much it takes to get your company to a certain milestone. Severely underestimated that. And then the other thing is, I think I kind of was more, maybe because I saw how my dad grew his business, no fun, there's no venture capital or anything like that in his world, right? And I always kind of more traditionally thought, okay, it's better to actually fund it yourself. And maybe in some cases it is, but I think in our case, because of the competitive dynamics, I wish we were a lot more aggressive when it comes to expansion plan. And of course, in order to do that, you need more funding. And so I think I would do that differently.
I want to be cognizant of time because I know Tracy and the team needs to transition into the next part of the summer program.
Yeah. I know like there's a ton of more questions that people have for you, but thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and thank you, Zach. Thank you, Cindy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dawoon. See you guys.
Thanks everyone for